What is up, guys? Dakota here, and welcome to the Driven Mad channel. As you can tell from the topic of today's video, or the title, excuse me, the topic will be, should you go ahead and just buy yourself a Wrangler, or should you wait for the new Bronco? And before we get into all that, I do want to make a disclaimer that this video is aimed for people who are genuinely more open-minded about things, instead of just, well, because it's not a Wrangler, I hate it, or because it is a Wrangler, I hate it. You know, that just doesn't, me being a car enthusiast, that's not how my mind works. I like a lot of stuff. Anyways, so let's go ahead and jump into it real quick. So before we get started, I should also point out that the vehicles I'm going to be using to compare side by side are going to be the two-door versions, because I own a two-door JL Wrangler Rubicon, and the Bronco that I reserved is also a two-door. The four-door, most of the stuff I'm going to say is going to be fairly the same for the four-door models, but just keep that in mind. And also the Bronco that I'm going to be comparing is the Badlands model, which gives you the sway bar disconnect. Every other model I've checked doesn't say that that's a option unless you get the first edition. So the sway bar disconnect is going to be on the Badlands, and then I'm also going to be including the numbers if it has a Sasquatch package, which gives you 35-inch tires, high clearance suspension, and if the vehicle doesn't already have it, front and rear locking diffs, the high clearance fenders, and high clearance suspension. So, and also a 4.7 final drive ratio, which is pretty solid. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the numbers that kind of matter when you're trying to figure out how capable a vehicle will be. And that is approach, breakover, departure, and ground clearance. Those four things play a huge role in how a vehicle will handle itself off-road. So, starting with the Jeep, the approach angle on the Wrangler Rubicon with the steel bumper is 44 degrees, which is awesome. You know, anything really over 40 degrees is awesome. It's gonna mean you know, you can go up things a little bit better. You know, if your nose is way down here and you're trying to go up something as opposed to like that. So that's awesome. The Bronco, again, with the Sasquatch package, is 43.2, which is also very good, but it's not quite there compared to the Wrangler. Then the next is the breakover angle. That's a huge one. You know, so a breakover is, you know, from the center point of the wheels, from the wheelbase, measuring up to the chassis, basically. So the closer your wheels are together, the better breakover angle you're going to have. The further apart they get, the lower breakover angle you're going to have, which means that when you're trying to go up and over something, you have a more likely chance of scraping, or if it's a higher breakover angle, you can clear those obstacles. So the Wrangler Rubicon two-door has a 27.8 degree breakover angle, and the Bronco has a 29 degree breakover angle. So that's pretty awesome. It's a little bit better on the Bronco. Then the next one is the departure angle. So coming off of some of those ledges or rocks or what have you, is it gonna just come up and scrape everything and smack the bumper? That's an important one. You know, I've smacked the bumper on my Jeep quite a few times. You know, so on the Wrangler it is 37 degrees of departure, and on the Bronco it's 37.2 or 0.3 depending on where you look. So very similar right there. Just the Bronco edges it out slightly. And then the next one is ground clearance. You know, so when you're driving over tree stumps or rocks, ruts, things like that, what can you clear? So on the Wrangler Rubicon, it's 10.8 inches of ground clearance. On the Bronco, you can get up to, again with the Sasquatch package, 11.6. So that's pretty solid. And those numbers right there show that the Bronco should be, at least on paper, a very similar off-roading experience to the Wrangler as far as what it can potentially go up and over and things like that. So with that being said, let's jump into where do I think the Bronco will be better than the Wrangler. Things where it should be, I mean, I'd be surprised if it was worse. It should have a better ride because of the independent front suspension that the Bronco is going to have, as well as the almost 4-inch longer wheelbase. The longer your wheelbase, the better ride. And the independent front suspension is going to allow for the wheels to act independent. So if this wheel hits a bump, this wheel doesn't necessarily have to do anything, whereas on the Wrangler, if this wheel goes up, this one goes down. It gets affected by whichever the other one does. So it should allow for a little bit better ride quality on the road, so when you're making those 9-hour trips to your favorite trail, it should be a little bit more comfortable. Also, it should have a little bit more space. Again, I mentioned that it was about a 4-inch longer wheelbase, and the overall length difference between the two on two-door models is going to be about 7 inches. And I finally got to see some pictures of what the rear cargo area looks like compared to the Jeep. And I also saw a video over at Redline Reviews. He actually showed it. And it looks like on the Bronco, you are going to get a little bit more space than you do behind the second row seats of the Wrangler. I'll be curious to see how they actually fold, or because on the Wrangler you can fold them up out of the way or completely remove them, which is super useful. Or are they just going to allow you to fold? Will they fold flat? Who knows? But with the seats up, the Bronco looks like it's going to have a bit more room and a bit more space, which means fitting in those fridges back there for when you're overlanding, fitting in all your gear. So that's a plus. The next is you're going to get way more powerful engines in the Bronco. So base engine is a 2.3 liter 4-cylinder that makes 270 horsepower, 310 pound-feet of torque, which is more than the 2-liter Wrangler, which the torque is 295, and I think the horsepower is fairly similar. I'll add it in the screen here. Then you get the 2.7 liter V6 that is twin turboed, and that makes 310 horsepower and 400 pound-feet of torque. So horsepower on the Jeep, 285, 260 for the V6. So the V6 is a huge difference. The Bronco is going to make way more torque, and that's a huge deal when you're off-roading or towing something, or trying to get up those obstacles. Having an additional 140 pound-feet of torque is massive. That's a huge deal. So that's one thing. And then also something that I haven't seen really anybody talk about is the Bronco can tow 3,500 pounds, which for the 4-door model on the Wrangler is the same thing, but that's a 1,500 pound increase over the 2-door Wrangler. So like my Jeep is rated to tow only 2,000 pounds, whereas the 2-door Bronco, they claim, is able to tow 3,500 pounds. So that's a pretty big difference, adding 1,500 pounds. So if you have a 2-door, you can actually tow something. Like if I wanted to hook up, a dirt bike, a trailer, and like a Razor or a side-by-side or something, I couldn't technically pull it with the Jeep, but I could with the Bronco. So that's kind of cool. I feel, someone that's used my Jeep to tow dirt bikes and whatnot all around, that's kind of cool. Next, let's talk about where the Wrangler is going to be better. So going back to the front suspension differences, that front solid axle is going to allow for more articulation. So if you want the absolute most articulation from the factory, the Jeep Wrangler is still going to be probably the way to go. Because it does flex a lot. I've taken it over some stuff where I'm like, holy crap, the tires are actually still touching because it just flexes so much. So that is one benefit that the Jeep will have. Another one is, sticking with that solid axle, typically speaking, solid axles can handle a bit more stress and have a bit more strength to them typically. So we'll have to see how the Bronco holds up handling bigger tires and all that good stuff, extra weight. But that's typically one advantage that solid axles have over independent front suspension, or independent suspension in general. The next one is going to be, because the Jeep has been out for so long, it's got insane aftermarket support. So you can buy a Wrangler and then the very next day outfit it with whatever you want. Wheels, tires, suspension systems, any different kind of suspension systems. Roof racks, light bars, all that type of stuff, winches, bumpers, you name it, you can get it right away. if you have the money with the Jeep. Not the case with the Bronco. Eventually, I'm sure it'll get there, but from day one, the Wrangler has way more, again, because it's been out longer, so you've got way more aftermarket support. But anyways, guys, that's basically the rundown. So if you want the max articulation and the most aftermarket support, go Wrangler. If you want something new and fresh, that's going to be a little bit better on the road, while still having a lot of off-road potential, you know, go with the Bronco. For me personally, I think the Bronco is awesome, but I also love my Jeep, and that's awesome as well. So I feel like no matter which route you're gonna go, you're gonna be happy with either one. So yeah, hope that helped. I didn't want to do a full dive into the new Bronco because there are videos far better than mine that go into all that. You know, so you can check those out or go to Ford's website. But anyways, I just thought I would point out some of the things that, you know, might make one better or the other, or might make you want to choose one or the other. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to click that bell notification and subscribe, so you get notified for more videos, because we got, you know, some cool things coming. Like I mentioned, the Bronco, as well as a C8 Corvette that should be here sometime. Who knows? Anyways, guys, make sure to leave comments down below if you have any questions, or if you just want to yell at me for how wrong I am about something. And I will see you guys in the next video. Take care.